And she washed him, and she began to wash his feet and his wounds, and she says, and every time she comes I wash them and they are already healing. Which is what makes Jesus' wounds close up, heal her in front of Oliva, his innocence, his love, his.
Yeah?
It's something. She's such a beautiful woman. She kneels down to thank God at lunch because everything happens and the Lord taught all the priests. She tells them, Holy priest, I didn't pay attention to that. The holy priest, when I arrived in my parish, there is a girl about 6 or 7 years old. 6 I think the girl has. Every time she sees me go by, she yells at me, hey, holy priest or holy father, and when she calls me a saint I remain. I'm not in, as if she reminds me that I have to be a saint. While others pass by they send me to hell. Then they take the courage out of me, realizing that a word can transform. And she told him, says to one holy priest.
See?
He asks one for a blessing. Once I was there after becoming a priest, because a priest, the Lord promised that where he stood for the first time I would celebrate the Eucharist, and for the first time, and that no priest would celebrate it before they made a tiny room there. I went to celebrate, and while at the celebration that memory came to me, and Oliva told her who I celebrated the most in this little room because the Lord is there. So she smiled and says, the Lord is telling me right now to tell him that he fulfilled the promise that no one has celebrated with me. He waited from 93 until 99 to fulfill the promise. Jesus is so beautiful. Children, do not lose him, says Olive. Only his face is enough for me to be in heaven. Just by looking at him I wish to be in heaven because he has reached heaven too. Just seeing him is enough for me. Then she kisses his feet and separates him. She says, I didn't know what happened, but I saw that an immense hole was opening under the feet of the Lord. I don't know if we traveled through it, but soon I saw myself in hell. I heard screams, wailing. There was despair. That place was it was horrible. I felt afraid. I felt terrified, and I said to myself, oh my Lord, where am I? The Lord told me, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid of anything. Nothing will happen to you. I am with you. Look closely. And when she saw herself, she was there. Imagine the tremendous fright. She is kissing Jesus' feet and a hole opens and she turns out there. She doesn't know if hell is below or in another place, but it was. He says, around the stove, that I saw a stove like the mouth of a volcano.
Huge flames were coming out of it.
It was like a bottom where the cane is cooked to make honey, like a lake of sulfur boiling and gushes. There were many people there who shouted and asked for help without being heard. Some insulted each other, others were luxuriously dressed. Others were without clothes. I think, she says, I think they were in the clothes they were buried in. A very rich man with cloaks and rings on his fingers and chains around his neck would stick out his hand and say, save me for this, and show it like a slice of onion. In Colombia, the onion is not only stubborn, we call what is in Mexico stubborn. There is also a segment that we call junca. So, that man was taking out a wedge of onion and he was saved by this, yes? And he showed a wedge of onion. But the flames were beginning to consume the onion wedge until it burned her fingers. I think it was something he gave but without love, or the only thing he gave in his life. The torment was cruel, there was no peace. I asked the Lord, is this the gnashing of teeth? He replied, no, it is not yet. It's just part of the suffering of the damned. Don't worry about your chains, or reign, or your wealth. They're in hell, they will have it, so don't worry about what for.
So that? What does what the man says about his girl mean?
That?
And Lala, for example?
What postman? Now later the man himself answers. He says, around the stove there were demons with their legs crossed, like this. They all had a long fork. Their appearance was horrible, their red eyes, evil mouth, malevolent smile, of a color almost black as gray. They smoked and smoked something that made them more rebellious and drank a reddish liquid that filled them with pride. Suddenly, everyone stood upright. The damned wanted to disappear. They were consumed in the lake of fire. It was an innumerable crowd. Hell trembled. Everything trembled. A demon about 2 meters tall entered through a door. Tall, more hideous than the other demons. This one had horns, claws, tail and wings like a bat. The others had none of that. He screamed and stomped his feet and everything shook again. I asked who it was and he told me, it's Satan, Lucifer, king of hell. I was going in there.
Hasta los demás demonios le tenían
Even the other demons were afraid at order given by him. They all ran towards him with a torch in hand in a line like a battalion of soldiers told him something that I couldn't hear because I was too afraid and I didn't ask the Lord. If the Lord had not seen me supported at that moment, I would have died of terror just by seeing him. And we went to go live there.
¿sí?
The Lord told me, here there is no peace for a second, here there is no love, it is the kingdom of hate. Here come all those who have despised me when they were alive freely and willingly.
Obviamente,
They preferred evil instead of good. Now observe well, because for some the grinding of teeth begins, suffering and eternal death, a worm that does not die and a fire that does not go out, because the one who is not with me is dead, that is the true death, not the one you call death, this death of a body, that's nothing. Death begins there or life begins there. The demons ran to the stove after Satan's order and put the pitchfork. They took out the condemned pierced by the pitchforks. They moved like worms their snake without being able to let go.
sí,
They screamed, they rioted.
sonaban,
Blood was coming out. Some were pierced in the back, others in the legs, others in the head. They grabbed the pitchforks wanting to get out, imagine, and not being able to get out. I asked the Lord, why do these souls have blood? The idea is that they do not have blood, and he told me they come to hell in body and soul as they go to heaven to body and soul. We are in the first hell and they have already been judged. Here are all the damned from the creation of the world until the flood. We according to all of the first world from the creation to the flood, the second world from the flood to the consummation of time, to start a third world with the people who want. A third world of peace, of love, of kindness, of mercy with the people who want and can, yes. The demons placed the condemned on a sheet like galvanized cincture and carved them between 3 or more demons. Then, as with a slightly longer nail clipper, they would pin pieces of meat on them and little by little they would pull out their nails.